The NCAA makes $1 billion in revenue from its student athletes. Now, of this revenue, student athletes receive $0 after they compete in the NCAA tournament or even just their conference games. As a student athlete myself, I know how it feels to balance schoolwork as well as the demanding physical demands of playing your sport. And for this reason, I feel student athletes should be paid in addition to the small checks they get for food because of their commitment to the sport as well as the money NCAA raises from the student athletes themselves. Next slide. According to Mark Edelman, the typical Division I football athlete spends 43.3 hours a week on their sport. Now, if you think about it, 43.3 hours a week is almost like a full-time job. So this is just proof it just shows that athletes should be paid for their work. When you work in a job, you're paying people for their time. 43.3 hours a week just shows their dedication and just shows that they should be paid. The NCAA also, on the other hand, offers, they give a 20-hour maximum to athletes per week for practices. But this isn't the way it sounds. You're thinking 20 hours per week? That's not that bad. That's 4 hours a day. Well, there's multiple rules that you can bend in order to make these 20 hours per week turn into the 43.3 hours per week you saw in my previous statistic. We're talking these 20 hours per week don't count the fact that you're taking flights back and forth across the country. You're tired and exhausted. You're watching film sessions and everything else. So, yeah, this just shows their overall commitment. On top of this, athletes have to balance being a full-time student. According to scholar Christopher Parent, the amount of energy spent on an athlete's sport hinders them from succeeding to the level they could in the classroom. For example, one of the main reasons why they don't succeed in the classroom as high of a level as they could have is because of their fatigue. They get to classes and they're tired, so it's hard to focus on what the professor is saying. Another reason is because they miss classes themselves. We're talking about March Madness. Basketball players participate in the March Madness. In order to participate in the Final Four in the tournament, the athletes had to miss 6 classes, 6 days worth of classes. Championship football games also occurred during class times. And not to mention, those athletes who participate in soccer have to miss most of the semester, a lot of the fall semester in order to go compete. Another reason why student athletes should be paid is because of the amount of money they generate for the NCAA as well as their schools. Next one. No, next one. Next. Oh, I'll do it. My bad. Anyways, so and this picture is kind of blurry, but basically the University of North Carolina won the NCAA championship this year. And in the picture, we can go from left to right, and you can say not paid, not paid, not paid, not paid, not paid, not paid, not paid. Now the issue with this image is the fact that the people who actually competed within the tournament and won the championship aren't being given any benefit because of it. They aren't being given any money. As opposed to the head coach, who receives over $2 million a year for being the head coach, and as a result of winning the NCAA championship, will receive an extra $1 million on top of it. So he's receiving $3 million for this 1 year for coaching them, while the players themselves aren't receiving any money. For this, and this is why I find it's unethical. Now you may be saying, like most individuals say, oh well, how are you going to pay student athletes at different schools? So different schools generate different income, so how are you going to regulate this? Next slide. Here's the solution. The major solution I came up with is the fact that certain athletes at different schools raise different levels of money for each school. So instead of paying all athletes across the board the same amount of money, I believe that you should be paid according to how much income you bring into the school and the school you attend. So a team that's in the Big West, no offense to our own conference, that in women's basketball, should not be getting paid the same amount per week as a female basketball student who goes to UConn. It's just not ethical in that situation. But it's also extremely unethical to not pay them while they're bringing in money to the school. Now you're wondering, why should you care? Now, as members of the U.S., we generally like to promote the idea of equality. The idea that we're not going to go in and be like bamboozled or like we're not going to be robbed in general. But so this situation just shows that athletes who are deemed amateurs are being taken advantage of. They're being deemed amateurs, meaning they can't take money from other people. They can't get a manager and other things that professionals can do. Yet at the same time, they're producing almost just as much money as professionals do, as a professional athlete will, and receiving no benefit because of it. It's just not right. And so overall, the $1 billion that the NCAA generates from its student athletes should be distributed to the student athletes themselves as well as the coaches. The main reason why this should happen is because of the commitment the athletes spend on their sports as well as the money they raise in order for this to happen. Thank you.